Hello, everybody, and welcome to Marpa House, where I'm joined by Acharya Dan Hesse for a conversation about the harvest of peace, and particularly in regards to the culture of generosity. Dan has been a student of Shambhala Buddhism since 1973, and he agreed to sit with me and talk a little bit about how we might approach the harvest of peace this year. So, with no further ado, I'm wondering if you might just say something about the culture of generosity.
Yes, well, we have the garden at Marpa House right behind us, and I was just harvesting peas, and talking about the harvest of peace seems like a good idea. Culture of generosity is very much like that garden, is that there's a natural sense of synergy in a community, a sense of connection, feeling part of something. So when we do this gardening, there's a lot of cultivation that takes place, and then there's a natural sort of outpouring of wealth, generosity, peas, and peace that results from that. So that little metaphor is actually quite helpful because it shows that generosity is something that naturally happens when you have something, community set up in a healthy way.
So given what you just shared about the garden, what arises in my mind is when I'm harvesting in my garden, I don't usually feel fear. And I feel like generosity or fundraising in general can often be very provocative and bring up fear for people. And I'm wondering if you might say something about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, is that we feel anxiety when we're about to give because we don't know if we fit in our world in a genuine way. All of what we have has come out of various levels of interdependence and coincidence. It's constantly happening. It's an interchange with our world and our job and our family, our relationships, our family history, all of that. And we have a pang. We feel this pang when we're about to give of doubt about whether we're going to be okay, whether we're going to survive. And so that pang really isn't about the giving. It's about the being, how we feel about ourselves in our life, in our world, in our relationships. And all of Shambhala, in terms of our initial level of practice, has to do with placing that mind of fear in the cradle of love and kindness. And really our community, with all of the various buildings, teachers, friends, programs, relationships, feasts, all of those things are creating an environment that is helping us experience that fear with intelligence, to release it into a sense of wakefulness. And the herald of wakefulness is a sense of wanting to connect more, wanting to give more. So, in a sense, we can see that anxiety is really good news. It means that we have an exposed nerve and that our world is touching it. When someone asks you to give, they're saying, oh, I see you as a rich person. So the next question wants to be, what do you mean rich?
Yeah, actually, say something about wealth from the perspective of being a Shambhala warrior, and maybe contrast it with conventional ideas or notions of wealth.
According to the Mahayana, how much money you have, the circumstances of having a lot of money, have a lot to do with your previous karma, your previous lifetimes, the generosity that you displayed in previous lifetimes. And we all know that some people can't win for losing in terms of having lots of money. They're just always poor. And other people, my gosh, money's just never a problem for them. They have lots and lots of it. That poor person can be a very sane person, and the rich person can be cruel person. We see that all the time. So having a lot of money, assuming one is relating to one's life in a basic level, is not just about how hard you try. It has to do with your circumstances, karmic circumstances that led you to be born in a poor place or a rich place, to a family that was able to support you, or living on the street as a kid. All of those different circumstances come up. So it would be a little weird if in Shambhala we related to wealth in terms of money, because wealth to Shambhalian has really nothing to do with money per se. Wealth has the quality of actually having a harmonious relationship with your life, which means going beyond a sense of constant struggle and fear and aggression. Really, the word we like to use in Shambhala is this word drala, which means beyond aggression. That we have enough confidence to live, be buoyed up in the magic of auspicious coincidence. And when we feel that kind of harmony with our life, whether we're rich or poor, we're actually in our own skin, we're in our community, we're in our world. Even if you have terminal cancer, you say all the news is bad in a conventional way. We're all going to get some form of terminal cancer eventually.
Right, right.
You know, all the news is bad because you were born into a body and things aren't going to go well in the end. That quality of being buoyed up with a sense of trust in goodness allows one to communicate without impediment. So that kind of richness makes a dime a dollar. That if you're given a small gift, a tiny little gift, by someone with a big heart, you feel like you've been born into a palace. And if you're given a lot of money with someone who resents you, you feel like you're condemned by the gift.
Yes.
So our richness has to do with taking the chance of trusting our heart. Then the details of how much we give and how we give and what we give, whether it's just touching someone's hand or giving them $10,000, all of those things are circumstantial. We figure that out with the usual balance sheet stuff. What can I do? But if we get the heart part right, everything else works.
So can you say something about how, as practitioners on many, many levels, some people just beginning the path and some people on this path like yourself for 40 years plus, how do we work with that in the sense of self-reflection or contemplation, so that we're actually making a real relationship, a genuine relationship?
You know, I think it's all about sadness. You know, we say the doorway to Shambhala is sadness and joy coming together.
Yeah.
That there's this tremendous joy of being in this world, and we have to cut ourselves some slack and allow ourselves to feel who we are and where we are. Feel what it's like to be an older person or a younger person. Actually feel our world, and then we can actually be in our world. And that sense of presence is joy itself. And from that kind of joy, you think, it's a shame we can't actually create a healthier world. I'd really like to connect more. How can I do that? I'm part of this. I feel proud to be part of Shambhala. I feel proud to be part of this tradition being born into the West that's really about creating a good human society. And that inspiration, it's like a chemical thing. It's not like figuring out. Often in past, when I've been asked to give money at a Harvest of Peace or something else, it's like I have a little debate with myself of, can I give enough so I don't feel guilty and still I don't feel too scared because I don't have enough money?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a very interesting debate.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the most interesting way to actually connect to your world. So when fundraising happens that way, you know, the fundraiser is trying to guilt the giver into a sense of shame about not connecting, and everyone feels pretty bad about the whole thing. Even though it can be effective, you can raise a lot of money,
Yeah.
but it's ew.
Yeah.
That's not so great. But the other thing is that you realize you have a genuine place in the world. If you're a rich person, in terms of being moneyed, or if you're unmoneyed, the richness of the two is equal. And therefore, there's a natural chemical sense of giving constantly. So when you give with your heart, the other things come along. You know how to write the check, and it feels good to sign your name. You know, you see the ink coming onto the check, and you're saying, "Oh yeah, this is good. I like this."
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
when you're part of a fundraising team, which I'm not in this case, but I have been. You know, people always comment. You realize people don't feel funny at all about paying $100 for a massage, or $4 for a latte.
Yeah.
It's way more painful and difficult. There's much more a sense of critique of the organization and of oneself when you're raising money dharmically. And that's because it touches this nerve.
Yes.
So we should regard that as good luck. It's putting us on the spot. But the response to that isn't to give till it hurts. It's to feel that till your heart opens and then give in a natural way.
I think a lot of us perhaps had that experience last year during the flood, when the center actually opted not to do a fundraiser at the Harvest of Peace, because people were so beset by need, and that natural sense of offering or stepping up. You know, so many people just going out and saying, "Do you need your driveway cleared or your furniture moved?"
That's
or your
right.
when you were talking about Sad Joy, that was what struck me. It was just the number of people that came together and made it possible for there to be so little loss of life and property, or to soothe people. And there was a real sense of interconnectedness. And I'm wondering if you could say a little more about that in terms of society and how we...
Well, actually, I think, your experience in Netherlands, yes?
Jamestown.
In Jamestown is the perfect example of that kind of interconnectedness, that when we realize clearly on the spot the impermanence of our lives and the impossibility of protecting ourselves from change, then it's very natural to actually reach out to the other person. It's something that's almost unavoidable. It's obvious when your community's been devastated by a flood. People are looking around, who can I help?
Yeah.
That's you say, who can I help? My world's gone, but who can I help? And that's an inherent quality. The thing that happens in a disaster, and I've seen it many, many times, is that people, in the poignancy of it, they realize the heart never was closed. It's not a big project to open your heart. As soon as you allow yourself to feel that pang, your heart opens, and you start to look around as, how can I help?
Yeah.
Where can I connect? Because I don't want to be left out of this project of benefiting, of connecting to who's around me. You read me a wonderful quote from someone in your community, and she is...
was Rosalie Little Thunder, who died on August 9th of this year. So this quote...
just recently.
Yes, came out in our community as a reminder as we're heading into long-term recovery, which is really very interesting. She said, "Remind yourself every morning, every morning, every morning, I am going to do something. I've made a commitment. Not for yourself, but beyond yourself. You belong to the collective. Don't go wandering off or you will perish."
Yeah. So we in Shambhala, each of us has made, from the very earliest person who's made, a new student, who's made a commitment to actually sit with themselves and be present with their own heart, all the way to someone who's taken the Enlightened Society vow or gone to Scorpion Seal Assembly. We've all made this commitment. And because of our culture, we sort of feel that commitment is slightly separate from our community. We haven't integrated those on a feeling level as much as we can. And I think that's our real frontier in Shambhala and in the Boulder Shambhala Center, is to recognize how bound together we are. We practice in our individual shrine room, but we practice to make ourselves feel this poignant pang of caring more deeply. And in the beginning, we feel it as fear and poverty. And then when we actually feel what we feel, it's richness itself.
Thank you. So I have one more question for you. In the aftermath of the flood, there were many things that maybe a lot of people don't know that the Shambhala Center offered to my community specifically. And one of those was a food distribution for the diaspora that came out of Jamestown. And before people actually figured out much more than the roof over their head, we were trying to figure out how we might also make sure those people had something to eat. And the Kasung helped organize the whole thing. And the Kasung who was at the door mentioned that almost to a person, everyone from Jamestown that came into the building for food found themselves longing to stay and incredibly grateful for the uplifted, peaceful, not fluorescent lit industrial buildings that they were spending all of their time in, and that the quality of what we had to offer was also environmental and very, very supportive for people. And I found myself thinking about how many people have made it possible for that building to be there, and these teachings to be propagated. And I very much want to be a part of that, which is why I'm helping with this particular fundraiser, so that in the future that's available for my grandchildren and your grandchildren. And I'm just wondering if you could say something about that in terms of lineage, because we're actually getting to that place where we have a lineage.
Well, we're going into the 4th generation now, kids, and the basic quality of Shambhala and this tradition is everything's done by hand. Everything's done manually the hard way. Nothing happens easily. Trungpa Rinpoche said, it's very easy to tear down things, but if you want to create a healthy society, everything has to be done stitch by stitch. There's no quick wins. So I think of a perfect example is the Shambhala Center, but even more the stupa. That every bit of that stupa was done by hand, manually. And equally, every bit of how we create the fabric of community, the communication, the caring, sense of sharing our fear and our bravery and our tenderness, that's all done manually. There's no pill you can take. There's no, you know, if we came up with $5 million, that wouldn't act, it would be hard. It would be a terrible problem for us. Because our challenge, no matter how slow it is to do something genuine. And that's slow and messy, and we have to see who everybody is. And in Shambhala, we never apologize for that. We see that as the richness of the brocade we're weaving. And this brocade is not just for us, though we certainly are right in the fabric of it, but it's a gift we're making to this world altogether.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm hoping that everyone who sees this will share it with your friends and come on the 21st to the Harvest of Peace celebration at the Boulder Shambhala Center. And
what time does it start?
It starts at 9, and we're going to have a big party afterwards, and it will be delightful just to be together with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you.